I left Peru escaping from the terrorism and the economic disaster. I got here in Colorado with $20 in my pocket and I didn't speak English. I remember when I got so excited because I got my first job as a janitor at Kaiser Permanent. I believe they paid me like $4.15 per hour. I thought I was rich. Then I realized I needed to find another job to be able to pay my rent and food. I got another job at Wendy's and I started working there during the day and continued my job in Kaiser during the night. After a while, I realized this wasn't the life I wanted. I was working all day to pay my bills and I felt my life didn't have a purpose. My life was going nowhere. That is when I realized that in order to progress, the first step was to learn English. During the first week at CCD, I read in the bulletin board that Denver Public Schools was looking for bilingual teacher assistants. I went to their office and applied to that position. I got an interview for Castro Elementary School. The only phrase I memorized was, "I like kids." So the interview was like this. I like kids.
Oh, nice. Our second question is, how do you interact with parents?
I like kids.
Oh, and last question. What personality traits do you have to be successful in this position?
I like kids. Surprisingly, I got the job. Working as a paraprofessional and supporting our students helped me find my purpose in life, mentoring, helping, and being a role model for our students. So my goal was to become a teacher, and by 2002, I achieved this goal. I graduated from college and got my first teaching job. While I was working as a teacher, I noticed some inequity toward our students. For example, when I was teaching third grade, the principal approached to me and told me I shouldn't speak Spanish and my students shouldn't speak Spanish because that way they have to speak English and the opportunity to pass the state assessment will increase. I was committed to fight for equity. That became my purpose in education. At that moment, I decided to go back to school and get my principal license to be able to support not only my students, but a much larger population. In 2009, I got my master's in education in administration and supervision. But because I'm a second language learner, I noticed I needed to expand my technical vocabulary. So I went back to school and get my master's in curriculum and instruction. In 2010, I started gaining experience as an administrator in different levels. All these experiences shaped my educational values and beliefs. I believe education must be within reach of all students, and we need to provide them with the necessary tools so they can develop their skills and abilities to become positive global citizens. Part of this process is the development of reasoning and critical thinking, where learning is cooperative, collaborative, participatory, and reflective, where students feel safe to exchange ideas and tolerance prevail. Education must be holistic, where our students receive the academic support, but also the physical, mental, social, and emotional support that they need. Education must be inclusive. We need to differentiate our instruction for our second language learners and our special ed students. Education must be organic. It needs to adapt to the changes of society. Our students need real work experience where they can connect academic knowledge to the needs of the society. If we approach education in this way, we will be able to promote learning beyond the classroom and fosters a sense of overall public good. Today, I want to talk about the importance of a district-wide cultural responsive system and how to gather data to create and implement the right interventions. Different departments such as equity, student services, and academics create interventions to support students. Something they need to understand is that one size doesn't fit all. Let's start with the MTSS framework. As you can see, in Tier 1 it says school-wide culturally responsive systems of support. Here is where I'm going to focus today. I believe this should be the foundation for our Tier 1. Why? Because people have bias about race, ethnicity, and culture. For example, people believe that minorities and poor students are not ready for school. Knowing these biases since the beginning, it will help you to create strategies to systematically replace these beliefs. Remember, if you don't believe in them, you cannot teach them. Biases affect everything. To know where your district school is in this area, you must collect the right data. To do this, you need to do a diagnostic of the district school systems on academics and culture. I'm putting the links on some diagnostics I did when I was the principal at DC21 and John F. Kennedy High School. Here are some comments I heard after these diagnostics. There's a lot of fight in these schools because we have black students. That's what they do. Why are we spending so much money in concurrent enrollment classes if these illegal students cannot go to college? Their parents don't care about these students. Special ed kids, talking about our AN kids, should have their own building. Those were some responses I received after I did some diagnostics in the school I work for. Knowing where you are, learning and analyzing these issues will give you and your team the understanding of bias-based beliefs in education practice, the inquiry and interpretation skills to examine and monitor the reduction of these beliefs in school improvements, and the leadership skills to translate such understanding into progressive, equity-driven reform. You will be able to build and continuous professional development on creating cultural responsive school environment. Why is this important? Because if you don't do this, this will happen. You will have problems with your curriculum and instruction strategies. An inadequate curriculum will have a negative impact in your students. You will create too many interventions for struggling learners. It will be overwhelming for your teachers and students and parents. Assessment. What are they looking for? How they are going to translate the data into targeted interventions if there are so many interventions? A behavior. You will create behavior interventions without addressing school climate. The result or consequence are that the intervention services for struggling learners are not well structured. You will have a reactive approach instead of a proactive approach. This means chaos. I have a saying, you cannot teach in chaos. So having that strong foundation, knowing where your district schools are, will allow you to build your intervention systems according to your students and community needs. You will be able to have a holistic approach. Thinking about your community needs, for example, you can create your master schedule, your budget, and your academics. For example, in one of my schools, after doing a diagnosis, we understood that our teachers needed a lot of support with the instructional systems. So we built this visual to support them, and we created the professional development so they know exactly what we were looking for. What we were looking for was differentiation. This was huge because we changed their mindset. We need to adapt our teaching strategies to our students and not vice versa. Our end goal was to implement a curriculum that reflect our diverse population. Our counselors, we modified the language they use to communicate with our students and parents. A lot of our kids, the majority of our kids, were first generation immigrants, and they didn't understand what the counselors were saying. Credits? What does it mean? GPA, concurrent enrollment classes, IB programs. What we did is to create meetings for our parents where they were educated. We were educating them about those terms. Also, we took our counselors to the 8th graders for an orientation about how high school works. Our school resource officer and our safety and security officer were trained by our special education team about 504s and IEPs. They learned how to interact with our kids. We trained them in therapeutic crisis intervention, PBIS. Thanks to these approaches, we were able to accomplish a lot of successes. Thank you for watching. I hope this information helped you visualize the importance of knowing your community, their background, their beliefs, to be able to create target intervention systems to improve your academics and social emotional outcomes. Thank you.